It arrived on the morning of my 34th birthday, slipped between bills and grocery flyers, sealed in wax the color of dried blood. At first I thought it was a joke, one of those elaborate marketing stunts. But there was no branding, no return address, just parchment-thick paper, folded with meticulous care, and a message written in beautiful looping script. You are cordially invited to the Harvest Festival in the village of Darrick's Hollow. The season has been bountiful, and we honor the gift of new life with the presence of new souls. Come, feast, witness. October 18th, 21st. There was something about the wording that clung to my skin, like damp ivy. Witness was a strange word to use, wasn't it? Not celebrate or join. Still, my curiosity outweighed my caution. I'd been chasing ghosts of inspiration for a year, ever since the advance on my last travel memoir dried up, and with it my motivation. Darrick's Hollow wasn't on any map I had. I Googled it. Nothing. No Wikipedia page, no travel blogs. Just a vague suggestion of being somewhere in the northern reaches of the state, tucked between faded roads and aging pines. That only made it more alluring. A town off-grid, with a festival held every 10 years? It was the perfect story, or at the very least, the kind of quiet place where I could breathe and listen again. 3 days later, I packed a small bag, loaded, up my Subaru and set off. The journey took longer than expected. The roads grew narrower, cracked and overgrown. My phone signal blinked out after mile marker 221, leaving me with only the hand-drawn map included in the invitation. The first real sign of the village was a wooden arch stretched across a mossy gravel road. Welcome to Darrick's Hollow etched below in smaller letters. Gratitude sustains us. I drove under it and felt the temperature drop by a few degrees. The village revealed itself like a mirage, rows of steep-roofed cottages with stone chimneys, flower beds overflowing despite the season, and fields golden with ripe corn and heavy pumpkins. A bell rang faintly in the distance, not mechanical but hand-struck, steady and solemn. People emerged from porches and garden paths as I pulled into the main square. They were dressed plainly, aprons, suspenders, woolen caps, but their faces lit up when they saw me. New blood, a woman called cheerfully, brushing dirt from her hands. Hush, Edith, a man chuckled, but even he looked pleased. A tall, broad-shouldered man approached, extending his hand with theatrical formality. He wore a dark green vest and had salt and pepper hair tied back in a short tail. You must be our honored guest, he said. I'm Mayor Thorne. Welcome to Darrick's Hollow. You're just in time. He smiled wide and white. The final days of the Harvest Festival, the most sacred time of all. A little girl peeked from behind him, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one eye missing. Her gaze was direct, almost unsettling. You shouldn't have come, she said, quietly. Mayor Thorne frowned and turned to her. Hush now, Clara, don't be rude. I was invited, I said, unsure if I was apologizing or defending myself. Oh, of course you were. His smile returned instantly. The land chooses its guests. I laughed nervously, but he didn't. A hush fell between us, broken only by the crunch of boots on gravel as other villagers approached to shake my hand, offer baked goods, or lead me toward the guest house prepared just for me. The guest house was charming, rustic but clean. A fireplace already crackled inside, and the bed was layered with hand-stitched quilts. On the small desk sat a vase of wildflowers and a note. "Rest well tonight, tomorrow we begin." I unpacked slowly, the events of the day settling like dust in my mind. Everyone had been so pleasant. Too pleasant, maybe. Their smiles never quite reached their eyes. And Clara's words replayed in my head, "You shouldn't have come." That evening, I was invited to a welcome feast held in the village square beneath strings of dried corn husks and lanterns made from carved gourds. The food was simple but delicious: roast vegetables, herb-stuffed breads, and sweet apple tarts. I sat at the head table with the mayor, a few elders, and 2 other guests: a young woman named Elise who worked as a freelance photographer, and a retired dentist named Walter, who had stumbled upon the invitation while cleaning out his late wife's belongings. "You got one too?" Walter asked me, lowering his voice. Thought I was going mad, but then I figured, what the hell? What's left to lose? Elise nodded. "Same. Been chasing oddities for my blog. This place is a gold mine." Mayor Thorne raised a goblet of cider. "To new friends, fresh soil, and the blessings of the hollow." We drank, and for a brief moment I let myself enjoy the warmth of it all. The firelight, the clink of dishes, the strange but comforting sense of being folded into something older than myself. That's when I noticed the old woman watching us from the edge of the square. Her eyes were cloudy, her back bent like a question mark. She muttered to herself, fingers twitching in her lap. When our eyes met, she mouthed something. "Witness." I blinked. She was gone. Later that night, as I lay beneath the weight of unfamiliar blankets, I swore I heard singing, low and rhythmic, like a lullaby sung into the earth itself. The wind carried it from the fields beyond the house. The words were unintelligible, but the melody, it sounded like morning disguised as joy. Sleep came slowly and uneasily. I awoke to birdsong and the smell of fresh bread wafting through the cracks in the guest house shutters. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I noticed the wildflower bouquet had been replaced. Fresher blooms, more vibrant, as if someone had entered while I slept. I rose, dressed, and stepped out into the village, which had transformed overnight. Banners of golden fabric fluttered between cottages, corn dolls dangled from windowsills, children raced through the cobbled square, scattering fallen leaves in their wake. It was only 9 in the morning, and yet the village pulsed with a quiet, purposeful energy. Every person I passed greeted me by name. "Good morning, Mr. Holt," they'd say. I never told them my last name. The first place I went was the bakery. I found Elise there, her camera slung around her neck, snapping photos of pumpkin tarts, lined in rows like soldiers. "I couldn't sleep last night," she said. "Weird dreams. Sounded like someone humming in the walls." I nodded. "You heard it too?" "Yeah. Thought it was just this old place getting in my head." Mayor Thorne appeared moments later, carrying 2 steaming mugs of cider. "You 2 are up early. Excellent. The morning's for exploring." "Is there a schedule or something?" I asked. "No schedule. The hollow guides you, but I'd recommend speaking to old Merrin if you're curious about our ways. She's the keeper of stories." Elise raised a brow. "Merrin? Like the priest from The Exorcist." The mayor chuckled. "Very different, Merrin, I assure you. You'll find her by the willow tree near the western field. She rarely leaves it." Old Merrin sat in a rocking chair made of twisted branches, her skin like sun-baked leather, eyes sharp despite the cataracts. When we approached, she didn't rise or smile. "You've come for truth," she said, "not pleasantries. Good." She gestured for us to sit on overturned barrels. "This land," she began, "was dead once, nothing but dust and sorrow. The people starved. Children were buried with bellies hollow as drums. So the first settlers did what desperate folk do. They prayed. Not to any god, but to the dirt itself, the roots, the rot, the memory in the mud." Her voice lowered, and something heard them. Elise leaned forward. "What kind of something?" Merrin shrugged. "We call her the Mother Below. She doesn't speak as we do. She feeds. And when the pact was made, the soil changed. Crops flourished. Rain came. The famine ended." I frowned. "What was the cost?" Merrin fixed me with her clouded eyes. "Blood. Always blood. But not our own." Elise looked visibly unnerved. "Are you saying the festival, it honors the gift? Every decade the Hollow gives thanks, and outsiders, well, outsiders remind us of what it means to be hungry." There was a long silence. She suddenly laughed. "Don't look so pale. It's just a story. Folklore to spice the cider." But I wasn't convinced. The way her lips twitched at the word folklore felt like a challenge. As we got up to leave, she grabbed my wrist. "You shouldn't stay past the third night," she whispered. "That's when the roots wake." I spent the afternoon wandering, the fields beyond the village. The corn stood twice my height, swaying despite the lack of breeze. Scarecrows dotted the landscape, some stitched with animal bones, others bearing masks like the ones villagers wore during the feast. Near the tree line, I found a child alone, drawing in the dirt with a stick. It was Clara. She didn't look up when I approached. "What are you drawing?" I asked. "A circle," she said. "It keeps the mother in." I crouched beside her. "Is that what your parents taught you?" She nodded. "Everyone does. We sing her name and walk the circle and never break it." Her stick paused. "But sometimes the circle breaks anyway." Before I could ask more, a voice called from the village, her name sharp and urgent. Clara dropped the stick and ran without another word. I was left alone, staring at a crudely drawn figure in the dirt. It looked like a woman, but with tree roots instead of hair, and her mouth stretched open like a well. That evening, Walter joined us for dinner at the guest house. He looked uneasy, glancing over his shoulder as he chewed. "I tried to find the road back this afternoon," he muttered. "Just to test it. The path I drove in on. It's gone. Like the trees swallowed it." Elise frowned. "You're sure?" "I'm old, not senile. I marked the route on my GPS. There's nothing but forest now." I leaned back, unsettled. "Maybe it's just the layout. These places are designed to confuse outsiders." Walter stared down at his untouched stew. "Or maybe it's something else." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying that melody again, soft and droning. We all heard it. We all fell silent. Later that night, I returned to old Merrin's willow. Tree drawn by something I couldn't name. She wasn't there, but beneath the chair I found a small bundle wrapped in cloth, dried herbs, a bone comb, and a scrap of parchment with a circle drawn in black ink, thorny lines with a symbol in the center resembling an eye made of roots. Beneath it, 2 words were written, for protection. Back in the guest house, I studied the strange charm. It smelled of earth and something older, deeper. I tucked it under my pillow and lay down. In the dark, I thought of Clara's voice. Sometimes the circle breaks anyway. And I dreamed of a woman made of bark and ash, weeping blood into the soil, her hands reaching up through the ground toward my chest. The third day began with drums. Low, slow, rhythmic thumps that echoed across the village like a heartbeat, buried deep beneath the earth. I opened my eyes with a start, heart racing. The charm under my pillow was warm, as if it had been clenched in a hand all night. Outside, the village square had transformed again. The usual warm, rustic cheer had been replaced with a ritualistic seriousness. Red cloth hung from rooftops. Black ash had been smeared on the doors of every house. And the villagers, every single one of them, wore masks. Some were simple, carved, wood painted with vines or ears of corn. Others were far more elaborate, faces with too many eyes, mouths sewn shut, features exaggerated into grotesque grins. So even the children wore them. Walter was already in the square, looking around with poorly hidden unease. "They handed me this," he said, holding up a cloth tunic dyed a dark rust red. "Told me to put it on and join the procession." Elise showed up moments later, dressed in a similar tunic, her camera tucked beneath her arm. "They didn't let me take any photos this morning. Said it was a sacred day," she muttered. "This is feeling less like a festival and more like a damn cult." Mayor Thorne approached us, flanked by two villagers wearing identical horned masks. He seemed different. The usual warmth in his voice had been replaced with something ceremonial. "Today we honor the pact," he said. "The hollow blooms because we remember, and you, our honored guests, will walk with us to remind the mother that we are grateful." Still, I swallowed. "What does the walk entail?" "Only presence," he said with a smile. "The land must see you. It must know you. That is enough." We were led, along with two other guests I hadn't met before, a young couple named Morgan and Chase, into the center of the square. Drums beat steadily. Villagers lined the road with torches, singing in a tongue I didn't recognize. We walked through the square, past the chapel, down into the fields. The procession moved slowly, deliberately, as if every step had been mapped out generations ago. Elise shot me a glance. Her jaw was clenched tight. I noticed that none of the villagers walked beside us. They walked behind us, watching, guiding. We passed the willow tree where old Merrin usually sat. It was empty now. The rocking chair had been shattered, its pieces arranged in a spiral around a small pile of ash. At the edge of the western field, the crowd stopped. A wide circle had been cleared, perfectly round. The grass inside burned away, the soil turned black. At the center stood a large wooden effigy. It resembled a woman, arms outstretched, hair made of twisted vines and bones. Her face had been carved into a permanent scream. The villagers began to chant. Elise whispered, "What the hell is this?" I had no answer. Mayor Thorne turned to us, voice raised. "The hollow is pleased. The guests have come, the mother sees, let the rites begin." Drums pounded louder. The villagers began to sway, and suddenly the effigy was set alight. Flames licked up its limbs, consuming it in seconds. Sparks drifted into the sky like fireflies. A murmur rippled through the crowd. One of the guests, Chase, was missing. We didn't realize it until we were back in the square, escorted like royalty. I asked Elise, "Where's the tall guy with the plaid shirt? The one with Morgan?" She blinked. "He was right behind me during the walk." We found Morgan near the well, pacing. "I've been looking everywhere," she said, tears threatening. "They said he must have wandered off, but Chase wouldn't just leave." The villagers offered bland sympathy. Perhaps he was called away, one said. The land speaks. What does that mean? I snapped. Mayor Thorne laid a hand on my shoulder. The Hollow knows who stays and who returns. It isn't for us to question. The masked villagers stared. I didn't sleep that night. The music continued long after dark, drums and humming and something deeper beneath it, like rocks grinding together or roots twisting in the earth. When I finally dozed off near dawn, I dreamed I was underground, buried alive, soil pressing into my mouth and something laughing in the dark. The next morning was overcast. Elise was furious. They're lying. That guy didn't wander off. No car noise, no packs missing. He vanished. We tried to speak with Morgan, but her door was barred. Someone inside said she was resting. Walter looked worse, pale, shaking. I'm leaving. I don't care if I have to hike out. Something's wrong here. He left before breakfast. He never came back. At noon, I returned to the chapel. The doors were open, the pews empty. At the front was a wide altar carved from black stone. Etchings covered its surface, swirling patterns, roots, eyes. Behind it, a mural stretched along the wall, a stylized woman in a cloak of leaves, standing over kneeling villagers. Her hands dripped red. Beneath her, a single line. One feeds the many. The Hollow remembers. I backed out slowly. As I stepped outside, I nearly collided with a woman I hadn't met before. She wore no mask, only a necklace of dried thorns. You shouldn't be in there, she said quietly. They don't like it when the guests ask questions. I studied her face. You're not from here, are you? She hesitated. I was a guest 10 years ago. I stayed. That's all I can say. Why? Because they let me. Her eyes met mine, and I saw the fear buried there like a splinter. Then she walked away. That evening, a villager I hadn't spoken to before, a wiry man named Eben, found me near the edge of the field. He pressed something into my hand, a piece of parchment, a crude map of the village, and a hidden path leading through the hills. You need to go, he whispered, before the final night. Why are you helping me? Because I once had a brother who wore the guest's cloak, and now he's part of the roots. He looked at me with haunted eyes. Run. When the moon turns full. If you're still here by then, she'll take you. The Harvest Festival wasn't a celebration. It was a countdown, and time was running out. I didn't leave that night. I told myself it was because I needed answers, that I couldn't abandon Elise or Morgan, not while this was still a mystery. But if I was honest, part of me wanted to know. I wanted to see. It's the same instinct. That draws people to cliffs or compels them to stare at wildfires. Curiosity like that doesn't end well. The next morning, the drums were silent. Instead, a thick mist had settled over the hollow. It clung to the ground like a living thing, softening the edges of buildings and muting every sound. The villagers moved through it in silence, their masks even more unsettling in the grey light. Elise found me near the bakery, clutching a stack of old books she'd found tucked away in the guest house. I think they've been doing this for centuries, she said, voice hushed. Some of these records go back to the 1700s. Crop records, birth and death logs, and every 10 years exactly entries about the honoring. Look. She flipped open one book to a brittle yellowed page. It read, "The harvest was good. The hollow remembers. The chosen were taken. The fields drank deep. Another dated 1883. 3 guests this cycle. The youngest cried. The soil accepted her. The bloom was strong. And again, 1932. We offer without shame. The pact must hold. The mother sleeps when fed. I stared at the pages, horrified. It's not just ritual, it's literal. They're sacrificing people. Elise's hand was trembling. And we're next. We decided to confront Morgan. Her door was unlocked now, and inside we found her sitting in silence, staring out the window. "He's not coming back," she said before we even spoke. "I dreamed about him last night. He was underground. Roots were growing through his mouth." I crouched beside her. "We need to leave. There's a path out of here. A man named Eben showed me." She blinked slowly, eyes hollow. "It doesn't matter, they won't let us. The village shifts." "What do you mean?" "Don't you feel it? The woods aren't the same. The trails change. The road we came in on is gone. We're inside something now. It's alive, it's watching." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. The village did feel wrong, like it was bending around us. Every time I tried to retrace my steps, I ended up back at the square. Elise stood at the door. "We go tonight. Moonrise, full moon. We follow Eben's path." Morgan didn't respond. She just kept staring at the trees. That afternoon, Elise and I returned to the chapel. The doors were locked now, but a window on the side had been left slightly ajar. We climbed through and descended into the undercroft. We found more than we ever wanted to see. The stone cellar was filled with artifacts, bones, bound in twine, masks lined in rows, dried flowers arranged in circles on the floor. At the far end, a stone slab served as an altar. On it was carved a map of the village, its lines etched deep and blackened with ash. Above it hung a tapestry, a woman of roots and rot, her arms spread wide, her face half covered in moss. Villagers knelt before her, and at her feet, human forms, half buried, heads tilted back in agony. Below the tapestry were the words, "We feed her and she feeds us. The pact is soil, the pact is blood." Elise turned away, hand to her mouth. That's when we heard the scratching. Behind a wooden panel in the wall, something moved, softly at first, then violently, scratching, thudding, a low moan. I found a rusted crowbar near the steps and pried the panel loose. Inside was a narrow chamber, too small for a person to stand. The stench hit us like a wave. Rot, fungal decay. And there in the corner, bound in vines and wrapped in cloth, was a body. It was Chase. His face was gray, lips torn from screaming. Roots had pierced his torso, snaking through his limbs like veins. His eyes were still open. Elise screamed. We sealed the panel and climbed back out, gasping for fresh air. "What the hell are they doing?" she whispered. "They're planting people." "It's not symbolic," I said. "They believe the dead become part of the soil, that it makes the land fertile." "And they're not wrong," she added bitterly. "Every 10 years the crops surge. There's data in the books. They bury someone and the land blooms like spring." We were silent for a long time. Then I said, "We leave tonight, or we end up like him." At dusk I returned to the field's edge. The willow tree was gone, not chopped or burned, gone as if it had never been there. Only a circle of cracked earth remained. Old Merrin's rocking chair was back though, unbroken, as if waiting. Inside it sat a mask, Not wood or cloth, but bark, slick and pulsing, like it had grown from the tree itself. I backed away slowly. By moonrise, we met outside the guest house. Elise, me, Morgan. Walter hadn't returned. We carried nothing but what we needed: water, matches, the map. I kept the charm old Merrin had left me tucked in my coat. The village was quiet. Too quiet. No songs, no drums, just the distant rustle of leaves. We slipped through the side path, moving toward the hills. The map led us through a narrow trail hidden behind a line of brambles. Every branch felt like it watched us. The deeper we went, the colder it got. Mist snaked around our ankles. The trees pressed closer. The trail forked where it shouldn't have. Twice we circled back to the same dead oak, even though we walked straight. "The path's moving," Morgan whispered. "It doesn't want us to leave." Then the chanting began, far behind us. Dozens of voices. Growing louder, we ran. Branches tore at our faces. The map ripped in half in my hands. Elise screamed. Morgan had tripped, her ankle twisted. "We have to carry her," I shouted. But before we could, the villagers emerged from the trees. Dozens of them. Masks glowing in the moonlight, silent. Mayor Thorne stepped forward, his voice calm. "The Hollow chose you. You cannot escape what's in your blood." "Why us?" Elise demanded. "Why always strangers?" "Because we know one another," he said. "We share the soil. But you are the seed, and the mother is always hungry." They moved forward, backed away, clutching each other. Then I remembered the charm. I held it up, and for the first time they hesitated. The bark mask man, Eben, I realized, raised a hand. "That is her mark," he said. "He was given a choice." Thorne frowned. "You overstep, Eben." She gave him a choice. Silence. Then Eben turned to me. "If you stay, you'll never know hunger, never age. You'll be part of something eternal." I looked at Elise, at Morgan, sobbing in the leaves, and I said, "No." We ran again, this time not toward the path, but down into the ravine where the creek split the land. We didn't stop until our legs gave out. By dawn, the village was gone. We stood on the road we'd driven in on, but when we turned to look, behind us nothing. Just trees, no buildings, no banners, no smoke, just a whisper on the wind. The Hollow remembers. We should have kept running. Instead, we collapsed at the roadside like wounded animals, gasping for breath. The morning sun was pale and distant, as though it too was afraid to draw close. No one spoke for a long time. Elise sat with her arms around, her knees head down, rocking slightly. Morgan stared into the woods, lips moving silently. I don't know if she was praying or whispering to someone only she could see. We had made it out, but not really, because the Hollow doesn't let you leave whole. We flagged down a passing car by late morning, a pickup driven by a farmer hauling crates of squash and onions. He eyed us suspiciously, but agreed to take us to the next town. We gave him some half-baked story about getting lost on a hiking trail, and left it at that. We didn't talk about the village, not on the ride, not in the diner where we sat for hours afterward, sipping coffee with shaking hands. Not even when we booked motel rooms under fake names in a dusty two-story off Route 19. Only when we were behind closed doors, in that anonymous room with flickering lights and paper-thin walls, did Elise finally speak. "I can still hear it," I nodded. Me, too. It wasn't music anymore. It was a hum, faint, buried in the edge of perception, like a sound only the bones can pick up. It vibrated beneath the skin. Morgan refused to eat. She flinched at every creak of the floor. By nightfall, she was feverish, muttering in her sleep. Elise and I debated taking her to a hospital, but something stopped us. Fear, maybe, or instinct. That night, I dreamed of the fields. I was walking barefoot through soil so rich and dark it felt wet. All around me, rows of crops stretched into the mist, towering stalks of corn, sunflowers with heads that followed me as I passed, and buried between the rows, bodies, half seen, pale hands, open mouths, eyes that didn't blink. I woke drenched in sweat, the humming louder than before. The next day we tried to research the village. It didn't exist on any map. No references in local archives. No record of a Hollow's End or Mayor Thorn or the Harvest Festival, like it had been scrubbed from the world, or like it had never been part of it to begin with. Elise, resourceful as always, dug through regional folklore forums and newspaper archives. She found fragments, old letters from settlers describing a valley of plenty that demanded tribute, a missing persons report from 1995, 3 hikers never found, last seen heading west from Briar Hollow. And then this. Locals warn of a place called the Hollow, not on any map, said to appear once every decade. Don't follow the music, don't accept the invitation. Elise printed it, circled the line. They lure people in, make it seem like a celebration, then feed them to whatever that thing is. She stared at the paper in silence. I think it was real, she added. The earth spirit, the mother. It's not metaphor, it feeds on us. That's how the crops grow. That's why the village never changes. Because it's stuck in time, I said. Preserved by sacrifice. She nodded. It's not just them that are bound by the pact. It's us too. That night Morgan disappeared. We found the motel door ajar. No sign of struggle. Her shoes were still by the bed. On the nightstand, a handful of soil. Damp, black, fresh. We called the police. They asked some questions, took a report, and left. We knew they wouldn't find her, because we knew where she'd gone or been taken. The following week was a blur. Elise left town, said she needed to be somewhere with crowds, noise, light, any place the Hollow couldn't reach her. She promised to call, she never did. I stayed behind, not because I thought I was safe, but because I had to know. What happens after? The hum grew louder with each passing night. My plants at home began to bloom wildly, off-season, with no sunlight. Vines snaked along the windowsill. Mushrooms sprouted from the floorboards. One night, I heard scratching in the walls. I tore them open. Inside, roots, thick, pulsing, reaching toward the center of the house. In the crawl space beneath my bed, I found something wrapped in cloth, like the body beneath the chapel, but it wasn't anyone I knew. It was me, or someone who looked like me, buried, bound, eyes open. I ran, not away, but toward the only place I thought might help. Back to the woods, back to where the village had been. There was no road now, no signs, just trees. But I followed the humming. I followed the scent of turned earth and dying leaves, and eventually I found the path again. It wasn't a road anymore, just dirt, but it was there. The Hollow remembered me, and it had never really let me go. When I stepped through the tree line, I expected to see the village again, but there was nothing, only a field, perfectly round, empty. The soil black as pitch at E. The center, A single sprout, just one. Green, vibrant, reaching toward the sky. I walked to it, dropped to my knees, and I heard her. Not with my ears, but in my blood. You returned. You belong. One feeds the many. The hollow. Remembers, I should have run, screamed, fought. Instead, I wept because deep down I understood. It had always been me. I stayed in the field until the sun disappeared, and the stars blinked through the twilight. The sprout at the center trembled in the windless air. I couldn't look away. Something about it pulsed with a heartbeat not my own, a rhythm that pulled at my marrow, at the ancient animal hiding in my chest. I felt no fear, not anymore, just a strange, slow understanding, like remembering something I'd always known. That's when she rose, not from the soil, but through it, a silhouette of roots and moss, taller than a house, bending like a willow in stormlight. Her hair tangled in vines, her fingers trailing leaves. Her face was not a face, just hollow sockets and a mouthless curve somehow still watching me. You sought truth. Her voice was not sound, it was vibration. Third echoed in the bones of the earth and in mine. You were chosen, and you returned. You are the seed. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came. Instead, she showed me. The air shimmered, and the past unfolded like petals. I saw the first settlers arrive, farmers from distant coasts carrying seeds and children, their hands calloused and hearts filled with desperate hope. They built homes, raised fences, planted crops in thin, dry soil. And when the harvest failed, they prayed. When the prayers weren't answered, they bargained. One night they gathered in the clearing, surrounding a withered tree. They spilled blood, animal, then human. And the land drank deep. In the spring, the crops grew taller than ever before. The fruit was sweet, the wheat golden. The animals thrived. So they continued. Every 10 years a ritual. The hollow grew around the pact. Its roads twisted into knots. Its seasons bent to her rhythm. Those born inside it became part of the cycle, and those brought in from beyond. They are the offering. I saw them all, faces across centuries, some afraid, some defiant, some, like me, confused until the end. The hollow consumed them. But they didn't disappear. They became the land. Their bones laced the roots. Their names were etched in wind and soil. The hollow remembered them, and she remembered me. The vision faded. I was back in the field. Alone, but not. The sprout had grown. It was now a full stalk, thick and green, topped with a blossom the color of blood. I touched it. It shivered beneath my fingers. And deep below I felt the network, the sprawling web of veins and vines and bodies beneath the surface. I heard voices, echoes, a chorus of the sacrificed, not screaming, whispering. It is peace. It is purpose. We belong. Tears streamed down my face, and I didn't know why. Then I heard a footstep behind me. I turned. It was Elise, or something wearing her skin. Her eyes were too dark. Her hair moved in windless air, and her smile, thin, wrong, knowing. You came back, she said. I thought you left. I did. But she called to me too. You think it ends out there? She pointed into the woods. It doesn't. The hollow grows everywhere inside us. I shook my head. This isn't right. People die. They become, don't you see? The rest of the world forgets, starves, destroys itself, but we endure. The hollow endures, through her, through us. She stepped closer. You don't have to be part of the offering. Not if you stay, not if you serve. My heart pounded. The earth vibrated. The blossom pulsed. You can live forever, Elise whispered. As part of the pact, a voice in the soil, a shepherd of the harvest. And if I refuse? I asked. Her smile vanished. Then you'll feed the bloom. I ran. Branches tore at my clothes. The air thickened like molasses clinging to my skin. Behind me I heard laughter, voices, the drums again, low and slow like a heartbeat. I burst from the woods onto the road, gasping, my lungs burning. The world was different, not just the forest. Everything. The sky hung too low, the stars pulsed like eyes. The air smelled of rot and nectar. Had I crossed back, or had I brought something with me? I made it to a gas station 3 towns over before collapsing in the doorway. They called an ambulance, asked me where I'd come from. I told them, Hollow's End. No one had heard of it. Again, but they found dirt in my hair, vines tangled in my shirt. My blood work showed trace compounds they couldn't explain. Fungal spores not seen outside deep cave systems or ancient rainforests. They kept me overnight for observation. That night, the hum returned. Only now, it was inside me. I tried to move, tried to rebuild a life. City apartment, office job, noise, lights. Everything Elise had said would drown it out. But it didn't work. I dream of the fields every night. I hear her whisper in cracks between floorboards. Plants in my home never die. Even if I don't water them, they grow, they watch. And sometimes when I pass strangers on the street, they nod ever so slightly, as if they know, as if they remember. Because the pact isn't broken. It never ends. The hollow lives, and I think, No, I'm part of it now, we all are. You don't need to visit the hollow to belong to it. It only needs to touch you once, just once, and it grows from there. I was wrong to think I'd escaped. I see that clearly now. It's been 6 months since I returned from Hollow's End. Or maybe I never really returned, because something followed me back, stitched itself into my shadow. It hides in reflections. It speaks in the rustle of dead leaves on pavement. It hums through the pipes when I shower, low and steady, the sound of soil drinking deep. I've learned to live with it, like a parasite or a symbiote. Some days, I even forget. But not for long. The hollow is patient, it waits, it grows, and now it's ready again. It began with the envelope plain, no return address, slipped under my door on a rainy morning. Inside, a single invitation card, cream-colored, embossed, edged in curling vines. The Harvest Festival, 10 years of plenty. You are cordially invited to witness the fruit of the pact and take your place in the cycle. My hands trembled. The date was next week. I dropped the card. It slithered when it hit the ground, just slightly. As if it breathed, I burned it in the sink. The smoke smelled like corn husks and blood. But the next day there was another, and the day after that, until I stopped trying to destroy them. They weren't threats, they were reminders. I was never meant to leave. I tried to warn people. I posted in forums, reached out to online paranormal groups, told my story under fake names, hoping someone would listen. Some laughed, others pitied me. One woman messaged me privately. She said she'd seen the hollow 2 years ago, said her brother vanished there. She believed me. We agreed to meet. She never showed. Instead, I found a small burlap pouch on the bus seat where we were supposed to sit. Inside, a withered finger and a seed. I packed a bag that night, not because I wanted to go back, but because I realized something. The hollow doesn't ask, it calls, and eventually you answer, whether you mean to or not. The roads had changed. The map app spun wildly, rerouting over and over. Gas stations blinked out. Signs grew less frequent. Civilization thinned into trees. And then I saw it. The gate, wooden, arched, marked with sun symbols and crescent moons. It hadn't been there before, but somehow I recognized it. Welcome to Hollow's End. Festival grounds ahead. I drove through. The village was waiting, exactly as I remembered it, frozen in time. Cobblestone streets, lanterns swaying, villagers bustling with baskets of fruit and bread. Children in white linen chased each other through the square. They smiled at me, as if I'd never left, as if I belonged. Mayor Thorne stood at the chapel steps. "Welcome home," he said. I didn't answer, just followed the hum. They gave me a room again. Same cottage, same quilt on the bed, same porcelain pitcher of water on the nightstand. I didn't drink it, I didn't sleep. Outside I heard drums and laughter, and chanting in a language older than sound. I waited until midnight. Then I followed the music. They were gathered in the fields, dozens of them. Villagers in masks shaped like beasts and trees. They circled a stone altar covered in vines. Torches lit the rows of corn, casting long twitching shadows. Elise stood at the altar, but it wasn't her anymore. Her skin glowed faintly green. Her hair coiled with ivy. Her eyes glimmered like sap. She raised her hands, and the crowd silenced. "The offering has returned," she said. No one looked surprised, because this had always been the plan. I was the seed, and now it was time to plant. They led me to the altar. I didn't resist. Maybe I should have. Maybe that would have mattered, but I was so tired. I climbed the stone steps, kneeled on the slick moss. The villagers began to chant. Elise, the mother now, knelt in front of me. "You were never meant to leave," she said gently. "You are the final piece." I swallowed hard. What happens now? Her smile was not cruel. It was reverent. Now you become the root of the next generation. The hollow will grow beyond the village, into the world, through you. She raised a ceremonial blade and paused. "I will make it painless," she whispered, "and eternal." But something shifted in that moment. A thought, a choice, a memory. Morgan, Elise, before she changed. Myself terrified and running through the woods. I saw the sprout again, pulsing with stolen life. I heard the echo of voices beneath the soil, and I realized I didn't want eternity. I wanted to end it, before the hollow reached further. Before it claimed everything. I lunged, not for the blade, but for Elise. I tackled her off the altar. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I grabbed the blade from the ground and turned it on the vines, hacking, slashing, tearing through the roots surrounding. "The altar," they screamed. High, shrill, inhuman, the ground buckled. The sky darkened. The hollow was angry, and it bled. Dark sap gushed from the altar. Villagers collapsed, writhing. The trees howled. The music cracked and sputtered. I carved a circle into the earth, just like the one in the chapel, a binding sigil, a seal. And as the hollow spirit rose, towering above me, wailing in betrayal, I plunged the blade into my own hand, bleeding into the soil. A sacrifice, but this time not for harvest, for closure, for the end. The light exploded outward, green fire, screams, roots tearing free from the ground. Then, silence. I woke alone, in a crater of ash and blackened stalks. The village was gone, only wind and ruin remained. I was alive, barely, but the humming was gone. The hollow was silent, and for the first time in a year, so was my mind. The road out of Hollow's End was empty. No villagers, no signs, not even ruins, just a long stretch of cracked dirt winding through dead trees and silence. I walked for hours, barefoot, bleeding, each step slower than the last. My limbs trembled. And the blade, the ceremonial one I'd kept, felt heavier with every mile. Not because of its weight, but because of what it represented, what it had done. Behind me nothing remained but a scorched ring where the altar once stood. The hollow had withered, and I had killed it. The next town I found wasn't on any map either. It was a faded stopover, one gas station, a boarded-up diner, and a rusted motel where the sign flickered the word Oasis. The woman behind the counter didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and a bottle of water, with a look of something between curiosity and pity. That night, I slept without dreams, and when I woke, something had changed. The vines on my arms, ones I hadn't noticed until now, were gone. The E. Soil under my fingernails had turned to dust. I looked into the mirror and saw someone familiar again, not whole but human. I stayed in that town for a week, didn't speak to anyone, didn't leave the motel room much. I watched local news reports, half expecting a headline. Strange earthquake destroys rural village, but there was nothing. Hollow's End didn't exist anymore. It never had. Still, part of me waited for the voice in the pipes, the dream in the trees, the root stirring beneath the floorboards, but it didn't come. The hum was gone. Only silence remained. I returned to the city eventually, moved into a smaller place, took a different name, found a job shelving books in a dusty old library where no one asked questions and silence was welcome. I avoided gardens, avoided parks, even avoided houseplants for a while. But over time, I allowed green things back into my life. One fern, then a peace lily. I watched them warily, waiting for the unnatural growth, the movement. But they remained what they were, just plants. And I remained what I was, changed, but free. Some nights I take out the blade. It's wrapped in burlap, tucked in a box under my bed. Not because I fear it, but because I remember it. Its edge has dulled. The carvings have faded. It no longer hums. It is just metal now, a relic of a world that no longer exists. I've spoken to no one about what happened. Not truly. I've written notes, letters, burned most of them. But one, I kept. I keep it taped behind a bookshelf. It reads, "If you find this and you've been there too, you're not alone, but it's over now. Let it wither. Let it rot. I don't know if anyone will ever find it, but if they do, I hope they understand." Months pass, then a year, And one day I'm walking home from work when I see something. A flyer on a telephone pole, a harvest festival. Out of town, small place. No name I recognize. The design is different. No vines, no sigils, but I freeze all the same. I tear it down, walk away quickly. That night, I sleep with the blade on my nightstand. Not because I think the hollow is back, but because I know the world is big, and things like her, like it, don't just vanish. They sink, they slumber, they wait. I visit the crater once, years later. It's barely a dent now, covered in moss and silence. No roads lead to it anymore. The air feels thinner there, like the land still remembers. I kneel in the center, whisper thanks, not for what she was, but for letting me go, for letting me end it. And I bury the blade in the soil, not to return it, but to trap what's left, to remind. The land, it ends here. Back in the city, I plant a seed on my windowsill, not one from Hollow's End, just a sunflower, simple, honest. It grows tall, strong, and when it blooms, it faces the sun. Not me, not the past, just light. The sunflower died in late autumn, not suddenly, not tragically, just slowly, quietly, its head bowing under the weight of its own seeds, leaves curling into themselves like folded paper. It wasn't a death to mourn. It was a season turning. Cycle completing, and it felt right. I clipped the stalk gently, dried the seeds, saved a few for spring, because things should end, but not everything needs to be forgotten. There are days I still hear it, soft rustles in the soil, phantom murmurs in the grain of old wood. I'll be shelving a book and feel a shiver run through. The floor beneath me, like something buried far below, is shifting in its sleep, but it never wakes, not anymore. Whatever life the hollow had left, I buried with the blade. Still, it left roots, not physical ones. Not the kind that break pavement or split foundations. Memory. Memory is a root. It grows without permission. I dream of Elise sometimes. Not the way she was at the altar, twisted, glowing, hollow-eyed, but Elise before. The woman who laughed too loudly. Who gave me warm cider. Who hummed when she thought no one was listening. In my dreams, she walks with me through the woods, barefoot and carefree, brushing aside ferns with her fingertips. "You remember me wrong," she says. I don't reply, because I don't know how I remember her. As friend, as deceiver, as victim. Maybe, all three. In dreams she smiles gently. "You did what I couldn't." Then she fades. Years pass. I grow older. My hands ache when I write now. My hair's beginning to gray at the edges. I find joy in quiet things. Birds nesting on my fire escape. The smell of old books, rain tapping on the windows like fingers from a world I no longer belong to. Sometimes I wonder what happened to the other guests. The ones who came to the hollow before me. Are their bones still beneath the fields? Did any escape? Did Morgan? But those questions don't haunt me like they used to, because the answers don't matter now. The hollow is gone, and I survived. Write everything down, not for myself, but for someone someday who might feel the earth shifting under their feet and know something ancient is still listening. I call it a story. People read it, roll their eyes, mutter, "Creepy, but obviously fiction." That's fine, I want them to think that. I want the hollow to remain a myth, because myths fade, truth lingers, truth invites, truth calls. One spring morning, I walk into the library and find a small envelope on my desk. No name, no return address. Inside, a seed, black, smooth, familiar. I almost drop it, almost cry. Instead, I walk out into the courtyard garden behind the library. There's a patch of soil near the wall where nothing ever grows. Too dry. Too shady. I kneel there, hold the seed in my palm. The sun is warm on my back, and I say aloud, "I know what you are." Then I press it into the dirt, not to nourish it, not to help it thrive, but to watch, to make sure it stays where I put it, to remind. Whatever sent it, I'm still here. There's power in knowing, in remembering, not to dwell but to warn, to guard the future against the past, because the hollow may be gone, but the pact, the instinct, the hunger, it's older than names, older than prayers. It can sprout again if we let it. If we forget, but I won't forget, I can't. The earth took blood, but I took its memory. That's the trade, that's the price, and I paid it. The seasons turn again. The courtyard stays quiet. No green shoots break the soil. No whispers drift up from below, and every day I pass by I whisper the same words. Not here, not again. I keep the sunflower seeds in a jar on my windowsill, not to plant, but to remember what should grow, what deserves the light. I watch the sun rise behind them, golden through the glass, and I think not of the hollow, not of fear, but of endings, and how sometimes they're the kindest part of any story.